Written by Nettie Benton Fry. Narrated by C.E. Benton. The end of 1910 and the beginning of the year 1911 were very rough years for us. Sickness and death, doctor bills, funeral expenses, crop failures, living expenses were not so much because everyone raised their own food. Money was out of range for our farmers and genters. How well I remember my own pair of shoes with a hole in the sole. Even then I had faith, so I prayed for God to send His angel with a new pair of shoes for me. Selfish, maybe. I don't remember how soon I got new shoes, but I'm sure Papa got them for me as soon as possible. It was 10 miles then from Springer to Ardmore. Papa would take a load of cotton bales to the compress in Ardmore. After Mama was gone, Russell and I clung to Papa, for he was our security. I could never go to bed before he made it back home. Sometimes it would be late before he returned. Grandma, bless her, would sit up with me and wait. It was so still out there at night, no cars, and every family went to bed early. There were no lights, only lamps burning in the homes. So when darkness fell, it was deathly still. Only crickets chirping and an occasional frog croaking, so the sound of Papa's wagon was very audible for a long ways off. How my heart jumped for joy when I heard the rattle of that old wagon, and I knew every clink of chains and clump of the horse's hoofs. Papa would take me in his loving arms. I felt safe there, and my world was a happy place again. Thanks to Grandma's loving kindness to me, she would have called Mama back to us if it could have been done. We had a pump organ that Grandma could play by ear. How I loved to hear her play that old organ and sing on Jordan's stormy banks. I believe I can feel her sweet spirit near at times, if that is possible. She was a decided influence in my life, so gentle, so kind, and so wise. Our family owned an Edison phonograph with its big blue horn and cylinder records. It so happened we had a special record about a phone call to heaven called Hello Central. I would slip into the back room and play it and cry my eyes red. It was worded like this: Hello Central, give me heaven for my mama's there. You can find her with the angels on the golden stair. She'll be glad it's me who's speaking. Call her, won't you please? For I want to surely tell her we're so lonely here. In my little girl mind, I thought she might hear, and I know I needed her. My brother and I were so lost, so alone without her. No one can take the place of a good mother. Although our grandma tried and came as near as anyone could ever do. My mother had told Papa many times during their years together, even when my brother and I were very small children, if anything should happen to me, I always want you to keep Nettie and Russell together. She must have had a premonition of things to come in our future lives. Our welfare was always first with her. Well, our dad did his best to honor her request. Papa, Russell, and I lived together with Grandma, Grandpa, Aunt Pearl, who was alone after Uncle Harry and Celta were gone, and Uncle Pierce. I can't say we were all happy together, as Papa felt like he was imposing after Mama was gone, but it was the best we could do at the time. Cotton was our livelihood, but sometimes the crops failed. If the crops failed, then the gin was out of business. All of our food was raised at home except flour and sugar. We never suffered for lack of food, but our clothing needs were limited. Grandma was so good and kind to all of us. Her love was overflowing for my brother and I. She missed and grieved our mother, as she was her oldest child. And many times she told me how she had depended on Mama. Sweet memories. How wonderful God is to let me remember those happy days of yesterday, especially the 10 short years I had to be with Mama. Well, there is a brighter day ahead when I can see her and all those loved ones. Time moves on. Our family was at a loss, but the broken threads of life had to be mended as work had to go on. Russell and I were in school when it began in the fall of 1910. I can't remember what grades we were in at the time, but children adjust to situations more quickly than adults, and our daily lives were secure with Papa, Grandma, and Grandpa. We also had our school friends to be happy with. I never liked history or arithmetic. Those were usually my failing grades. Grandpa would patiently try to help me with my problems, but I could not understand. Maybe I didn't try hard enough. He would get so impatient with me, and I felt dumb and sorry about it all. After a mother is taken away, there are relatives who try to be helpful. Aunt Minnie almost had Papa convinced to send me to school in Penile, Texas, but Grandma and Grandpa put up a fight against that very quickly. All the arguments she presented were met with stern refusal from my grandparents, so I did not go. I would have stayed with Uncle Jim and Aunt Sally, but there would have been a broken promise to my mother if Papa had listened to Aunt Minnie. I was happy when the decision was made for me to stay with those I loved and felt so secure with my grandparents and Papa. Many more problems arose, many more heartaches, many more disagreements, many more decisions, but in later years of my life I have learned to live just for today. I have decided that living life one day at a time is best. Random Journeys into a Beautiful World, written by Nettie Benton Fry, narrated by C.E. Benton. Chapter 4. Our lifestyle was changed after Mama was gone. Home was not home anymore for Papa, as he felt he was imposing on my grandparents. Mama had always taken the lead in the home, and Grandma had depended on her for so many things. Aunt Pearl was not her normal self after the 3 months of illness and recovery from typhoid. Russell and I had to teach her to walk again, as her body was so weakened from fever and the lack of food. She had lost so much weight, she looked like a walking ghost, so poor and pale and weak. The sickness, sorrow, and deaths were blotted from her memory. So many times in later years I would tell her about it all, as she would ask the questions. She could not remember Mama's death, or her husband, and her beautiful baby girl Celta being taken away from her. Maybe it was best for her that way. As Aunt Pearl began to get stronger, she started doing things around the house, which relieved Grandma of some of the worry and work. She had also began teaching me how to do things to help, such as ironing, which I didn't like, especially my brother's shirts. The materials were all cotton and flannel, no drip dries or double knits. Everything was starched, dried, sprinkled, and then ironed with flat irons heated on wood-burning stoves. There were long dresses to the ankles, petticoats, chemise waists, all starched and ironed, slick as a button. My rebellion was terrible when I was made to iron. Tears and tempers flared. Now I know it was for my own good, but I still don't like to iron. Thanks to drip dries and double knits, the iron is seldom used in my home today. I like wash day and yard cleaning day. We had very little grass in our yard, no lawn mower, just a hoe and a rake. A broom was used all over the yard, and it was clean when we finished. Even the chicken house was given a good house cleaning, with new straw in the nest. This was done about every 2 weeks. Our lives had returned to somewhat normal of a routine, ginning, gardening, and school for Russell and me. Grandma and Aunt Pearl made a trip to Bonham about a year after Mama went away, and Grandma Benton came to stay with us while they were gone. Now I loved Grandma Benton. She was a good woman, but she was always more stern with Russell and me. Her way of correcting us was so different, more forceful, and we were not used to that. Our lives were not very happy ones during her time with us. Uncle Bud and Aunt Anna, who lived in Ed Hubie, loved to come up to Springer for a visit in the summer. Aunt Anna was a school teacher in Missouri before she and Uncle Bud were married. In fact, the younger boys, who later became notorious outlaws, were 2 of her pupils for a short while. They had quite an experience one night in their home at Ed Hubie that they loved to tell about. They were eating supper when there was a knock at the door. Uncle Bud got up from the table to see who was there, and when he opened the door, there stood the two younger brothers. He invited them in, and Aunt Anna asked them to share their supper. They said they were in sort of a hurry, as they were on their way to the Round Rock, Texas, to rob the bank and kill Sam Bass, who was the U.S. Marshal there. However, they did take time to eat a bite. After they left, Aunt Anna was cleaning away the dishes, and to her utter astonishment, when she picked up their plates, there was a $50 gold piece under each one. Uncle Bud and Aunt Anna just assumed that they had already been to Round Rock, robbed the bank, killed Sam Bass, and were on their way back to Missouri. That was the last they ever saw or heard of the younger brothers. Fate sometimes plays strange tricks on us in the crossing of life patterns from the past. The old home where they lived is in shambles by now, I'm sure. The last time I was in Ed Hubie, I turned to look in its familiar location, and my heart sank. A wave of nostalgia flooded my soul because it looked so pitiful, so neglected, so fallen apart. There are many sweet, precious memories that tie my life to Ed Hubie, so named for my grandfather. The road or town marker, Ed Hubie, I still look on with pride. All the old settlers are gone, but many of the younger generations have built beautiful homes there now. It is a wonderful farming country, good earth, good black soil, so rich and productive. Chapter 5. Well, a new era or chapter in my life I will try to begin. 2 years after Mama went away, Papa felt like he had to make a home for Russell and me, and he was right. With the three of us, it was just too many for my precious grandmother to be responsible for. Papa met Miss Bessie Wheeler, who lived in Ardmore. She worked in the telephone office and lived with the Staples family, who were friends of the Dustin family. It was through these two families that Papa was introduced to her. Russell and I were taken into Ardmore by Papa to meet her, and we were impressed very much with her prettiness, neatness, and her gentle kindness to us. The thrill of a new home life, or even moving to Ardmore, was appealing to us, and it gave us a feeling of security once more. My grandparents and other relatives were not so sure it was best for us, as our mother had not been gone too long. They were deeply concerned about a stepmother coming into our lives. Our welfare was uppermost in their thoughts, and the word stepmother was not looked upon very kindly in those days. There were discussions about releasing my brother and me into her custody. After all, we were our grandparents' daughters' children, and so very near and dear to them. As time passed, fears and resentment eased somewhat for everyone. On September 29, 1912, my dad and Miss Bessie Wheeler were united in marriage. Russell went into Ardmore with Papa for the wedding, but I was not that anxious for this event to take place, so I did not go. I still clung to my grandparents, and did not want to hurt them by cutting loose the precious ties that bound me to my mother's memory. Papa had rented a house in the west end of Springer, nothing fancy, but it was good and sturdy. I did not go at once to live with them. There was sorting of my mother's linens, quilts, pillows, feather beds, and furniture to be done. It was really a heartbreaking time for each member of the family. Tensions and resentments finally eased to a point where I went to live in the new home and a new way of life my papa had provided. I shall never forget the newness of it all. The house, some new furniture, the arrangement of the furniture, the smell of the oilcloth on the dining table, the new stove, safe, table, and chairs. As I think back on this, I know now it was the best for all of us. The first day was sort of a settling in to a new family way of life. Papa came home in the evening when his work was done. I heard him say, "How did you get along with the children?" She answered happily, "They called me Mother." Well, from then on the ice was broken and melted. We were a family. Mother was an excellent cook and prepared wholesome meals for us, and she was kind to Russell and me. She was not a very healthy person. Her disposition was not as gentle and sweet as Mama's, and that caused heartaches and tears. In all the years they were married, I never tried to hurt her by keeping Mama's name or the memories before her. but in my heart the comparison was made over and over. No two people are alike, each has their own personalities, so we adjusted to our stepmothers. She was good to Russell and me. Papa said he could stand any mistreatment that was done to him as long as Russell and I were cared for. We did have lots of happy days together, and we all thrived. When Russell was stricken with typhoid fever, Mother gave him the best of care. She really made herself a very special place in my grandparents' hearts from then on. She was a wonderful woman and tried to take a mother's place. I deeply and sincerely respect her memory. Papa was a very strict man with me. He did not want me to go out or do many things, so Mother was a go-between for me. She gave parties and had many friends come as often as possible. Ice cream socials were a form of entertainment for us. Playing games, eating ice cream, and delicious cakes made our evenings complete. These were happy days. Our stepmother, or I like to think of her now as our adopted mother, was not a very well person, so I did help her with the housework that I was capable of doing. She had lost her mother when she was younger than I, so we sort of had a common bond to make us more understanding of our lives together. She had been shifted from one relative to another until her father remarried a wonderful woman, younger than her, who made a happy home for all the children. She was a Christian and read the Bible to the family. She sang to the children, and Mother would recall some of the songs and the happiness she brought into their home. Our lives together were good days now. We had a home again and could be a family once more. School was important to me. Papa bought a new piano for me, and I really tried to do my best with my music. Mrs. Sellers was a very sweet teacher. She was a chubby, happy woman. Mr. Sellers had a grocery store in Springer, and Ralph was the only child. When someone gave a party, Mrs. Sellers would play the piano, and Dr. Gillespie played the fiddle. It was a circus to watch them, as each tried to outdo the other. Mrs. Sellers would get so excited she would shake her fat little body all to pieces, laughing, sweating, and pounding those keys. Then they would play waltz music, and couples would dance. My papa did not believe in dancing, so I never learned to do that. However, once I did try to waltz at a party. Amos Brown tried to teach me, and I liked the rhythm of the music and the waltz step. My friend Jessie and I loved to sing together those good old-fashioned love songs. So when there was a party, we would sing for the gang. Occasionally, on a night when the moon was shining bright, some of the older boys and girls would take a wagon load of us kids and drive up to the edge of the Arbuckle Mountains. We would all sing at the top of our lungs. It was beautiful, and our voices rang out strong. The sky was so clear, the moon and stars so twinkling and bright. Those were simply lived days, but so happy and carefree. Now as I think back, I know I was eating my sweet cakes, as my grandmother used to tell me. Box suppers were a very popular way to raise money for some special projects for our school. Each girl tried to decorate her box the prettiest and most attractive for that special boyfriend. Of course, the highest bid won the box of food, and the disappointed girl had to eat with the one who bought her pretty box. I was guilty of tipping my boyfriend to the color of the box to look for when the bidding started. Cakes were sold to the highest bidder for the prettiest girl in Springer High School. On one particular night, we had a real nice program. The auditorium was full, and the contest was most exciting. My heart was beating rapidly, for I was vain enough to think I might win. Sure enough, I was the winner. Mother had made the cake, and it was delicious, for she was a wonderful cake and pie baker. Mr. Stonecipher, my teacher, was always trying to trade me out of my apple pie that Mother put in my lunch pail, but he never won a crumb. It was just too yummy to give up. We ate in the classroom together, where the room was warm from the heat of the stove. I can almost feel the warmth and smell the good home-cooked odors coming from our lunch pails. Such happy, good, simple living school days to recall. The county contests were popular with me and all my school friends. I pride myself now for the ability I had in correct spelling and speech. Our spelling bees were part of our school programs. 2 teams of the best spellers were chosen by 2 captains, and the contest began. Not meaning to brag, my children, grandchildren, great and great-great-grandchildren, but I usually went to the head of the line. Aunt Pearl entered into these spelling bees with me in the evenings, and it would thrill me to pieces to be able to turn her down. Outspeller. Well, I was deflated in one of our county spelling contests. On this particular occasion, I had also entered the speech contest. These contests were held in the Carter County Courthouse in Ardmore. Papa took me to Ardmore on Sunday afternoon for the contest on Monday. He gave me words all the way into town, and I did not miss a one. Honest, I knew I could win. On Monday, all the contestants lined up, words were given, and spelled correctly. Then my turn came, and I knew I could spell anything that was given to me. As I said, I was deflated, defeated, and crushed to the floor with embarrassment. I spelled initial, E-N-I-T-I-A-L, instead of initial, I-N-I-T-I-A-L. How terrible for me to make that mistake when I knew the word so well. I cried because I had failed my teachers in my school. After this failure, I hardly had the courage to go into the oratorical contest. Papa, Mother, and Aunt Minnie had encouraged me to try out for it. Believe me, I pitted my talents against some real pros who were older than me and had majored in speech. My courage recharged. I got up on the stage and gave The Wreck of the Hesperus, the best that was in my power to give. I won 3rd place, a bronze medal to take back to my school and teachers, who were proud of me to this day. I am thankful for that event in my life. This one achievement, which meant so much to me. Aunt Minnie complimenting me for my effort, and thought I looked pretty in my pink satin dress and pink ribbons in my hair. The prized bronze medal was misplaced or lost through the years, but I treasure the memories. So many incidents have slipped from my memory, but my friends and school days of Springer were such a happy part of my girlhood. Like most girls, I had one special friend whose name was Jessie Gillespie. We had our friendly spats, jealousy, and mistakes, but we were so close that none of these things could come between us. When I finished my school days at Springer and enrolled at Carrollton College in Bonham, Texas, we were lost without each other. However, from that time on, our lives took different paths.